Our next guest, Shane McCrae, is an award-winning poet and Columbia University professor who details his true story of being taken from his black father at 3 years old and being raised by his white supremacist grandparents. McCrae's new book, Pulling the Chariot Son, dives deep into Shane's childhood and serves as a powerful reflection on his experience with race and unveiling the truth about his identity. Shane, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So you write that a lot of your own childhood was based off of fabrications that your grandparents told you. When did you discover that you had been taken from your father?
Probably when I was about 16 years old and met my father. I had heard things that didn't make a ton of sense with regard to how I came to live with my grandparents, but it wasn't until I met him that I think I really started to understand it.
And where was your mother in all of this?
She usually lived nearby, sometimes in the same town I lived in, sometimes in a city not too far away. But she didn't live with me and my grandparents. When
you discovered this, when you met your father for the first time at age 16, what was that like? What was going through your mind?
It's sort of like being in a state of shock, but for days. You know, I called him and he came by, and it was just, it's such a large thing, it's hard to really feel it when it's happening.
You write in the book that you thought it might be impossible to write about this experience. Talk about that process, and how did you get to finally write this book?
I think what made writing the book possible was trying to figure out some sort of technical challenge, like how to write a sentence that would keep me interested in writing so that I wouldn't have to think about the thing I was writing about, and instead think about how do I actually write. That made it easier.
So, and you talk about in the book that your book is a recollection of memories with your grandparents, and in some cases you didn't really remember. You were asking yourself if you were misremembering certain events. So how do you look back at your childhood now?
I don't remember a lot of it. My grandparents' home was a very abusive home, and I started blocking memories, painful memories, probably right when I was kidnapped. And so almost everything I remember is in the book. I don't have a lot of memories, and so I don't really look back at it that much.
Did it help to write this book, to kind of work through some of that trauma?
Yeah, I think so. Before writing the book, I didn't really think about what had happened to me as a child. I mean, I was aware of it, but it wasn't something that I had really internalized until I wrote the book.
So you write in the book, whiteness and blackness weren't facts about me. Whiteness was a wheat field I stood in. Blackness was a pit somewhere in that field, hidden by somehow taller stalks growing from it. How did you come to understand the history and pain you say came from being mixed?
You know, I was always conscious that I was black, but because my grandparents were white racists, there was also sort of a feeling that I couldn't be black, even though I was black. And so there was a sort of double consciousness going on through my childhood, and I wasn't really able to sort of accept and live my blackness, you know, in my home until I got away from my grandparents and was living on my own.
When did you discover that your grandparents were that way? When did it hit you that something just isn't right here?
Oh, always. They
always knew?
Yeah, I always knew.
Your style of writing is very different. You are a poet, so talk about that difference, writing poetry to then writing this book.
Well, when you're writing a poem, it gets, once you get past one page, it starts to get really exciting. You feel like you're doing it, like writing something very long, very large. And so the idea of writing a book that would even be 50 pages of prose was incredibly intimidating. And so I really just had to figure out a way to keep me interested in the writing itself. And that was one of the things, you know, it made it possible to write, and it also kept me writing.
Race is obviously a big part of your book, and topics of race are still pretty divisive today, even in 2023. How do you want this book to resonate with readers now?
You know, I've gotten some notes since the book has come out from people who say that they experienced similar things, and I've heard from other folks who have experienced similar things, and so I'm just hoping that the book is useful for helping people to confront issues like this in their own lives. If people have experienced something similar, I hope the book helps them to think about it.
Yeah, because you're not alone.
Yeah.
Well, Shane, thank you so much for sharing with us. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Shane McCrae, such an insightful conversation. His book, Pulling the Chariot of the Sun, is out wherever books are sold.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.